It was a rainy night when Sadio Mané walked through the streets of Paris, dressed in worn-out clothes and an old cap pulled low over his head. The cold wind blew fiercely, and the puddles scattered across the asphalt reflected the glow of streetlights and shop windows. He was tired, hungry, and, above all, frustrated. A few hours earlier, he had lost his wallet somewhere in the subway or on the street. He wasn't sure. His phone was also out of battery, leaving him in a completely unfamiliar situation. Since becoming one of the most renowned football players, Mané had rarely faced such difficulties. He was used to traveling the world in private jets, staying in luxury hotels, and dining in the finest restaurants. But now, on this cold night, he was just another man, hungry and without money. As he walked, he observed the few people around him. Some were taking shelter under awnings, waiting for the rain to pass, while others hurried by, holding umbrellas and shopping bags. No one seemed to notice him. This gave him a mix of relief and unease. He liked being discreet, but he was used to being recognized, at least by die-hard football fans. After a few blocks, his eyes landed on an illuminated sign, the iconic McDonald's logo. The smell of fried food and grilled burgers reached him, making his stomach growl loudly. He hadn't eaten in hours. Without hesitation, he stepped into the fast food restaurant. The place was bustling, as usual. Some children ran between tables while their parents tried to keep them under control. Groups of young people sat together, laughing and scrolling through their phones. Lone workers ate quickly before heading home. Behind the counter, uniformed employees efficiently served customers. Mané hesitated as he approached the register. No money, no card, no phone. What could he do? He thought about explaining his situation but knew it would sound odd. "Hi, I'm Sadio Mané, a football player. I lost my wallet and have no money. Can I have a meal?" It sounded ridiculous. He took a step back, unsure, scanning the brightly lit menu above the employees. His eyes met those of a young cashier, a thin guy with curly hair and kind eyes. His name tag read, Lucas. The employee noticed Mané's hungry and confused expression and frowned slightly, as if trying to understand the situation. "Good evening, sir. Do you know what you'd like to order?" Mané scratched the back of his neck, unsure how to respond. Lucas noticed his hesitation and glanced at his worn-out clothes. The jacket looked old, the sneakers showed signs of wear, and the cap was dirty from rain and dust. To anyone there, he looked like just another struggling man. The cashier discreetly checked around to see if any managers were nearby. Then, he leaned slightly over the counter and spoke in a low tone. "Are you out of money?" Mané hesitated but nodded. Lucas didn't think twice. He tapped a few buttons on the cash register screen and grabbed a tray. "You can pick a meal, anything you want." The player was surprised. He looked at the young man with gratitude and said, unsure of how to refuse, "A Big Mac, and fries if that's not too much." "No problem at all," Lucas said with a small smile. He grabbed a cup, filled it with soda, quickly prepared the order, and handed the tray to Mané. The footballer took the food with a sincere look of gratitude and murmured, "Thank you." "Really?" Lucas just nodded, satisfied. But their moment of kindness didn't go unnoticed. Behind the counter, a burly man in a suit and tie with a name tag that read manager and a stern expression had been watching with disapproval. He stepped forward, arms crossed, and waited until Mané picked up his tray and started walking away. "Lucas," the manager's firm voice cut through the air, making the employee stiffen. He turned slowly, already expecting what was coming. "Yes, sir?" The manager pointed to the register screen, where the transaction showed no payment. His tone was full of disapproval. "Did you just give a customer free food?" Lucas swallowed hard but tried to explain. "He was hungry and had no money, sir." "You thought wrong," the manager interrupted, his voice heavy with irritation. "This isn't a charity. If someone wants to eat, they have to pay. You can't just start handing out food as if you own the place." Mané, who had just sat down at a table, heard the argument and felt a weight in his chest. He understood that, no matter how well-intentioned Lucas was, Big companies like this followed strict rules. Still, something about the manager's tone deeply bothered him. Lucas tried to argue. "Sir, it was just one meal. I could even pay for it later if needed." But the manager had already made up his mind. "Pack your things and leave. You're fired." The sentence was spoken loudly, drawing the attention of customers and employees alike. Lucas's face turned red with embarrassment and indignation. He opened his mouth to protest but stopped, realizing it was useless. Mané suddenly stood up, leaving his tray behind. The food no longer seemed important. He looked at the manager, feeling a growing fury. What was meant to be a simple act of kindness was being punished cruelly and unfairly. Then, without thinking twice, he walked up to the counter and positioned himself between Lucas and the manager, staring straight into the man's eyes. The air around them grew tense. Customers and employees watched the scene unfold, waiting to see what would happen next. The silence inside the restaurant was almost absolute. Only the sound of the fryers working and the faint murmur of distant customers broke the tension that had formed. The manager, a burly man with a flushed face, frowned as he saw Mané approaching. He didn't recognize the footballer. For him, this was just another stranger in worn-out clothes, interfering where he didn't belong. "Is there a problem?" the manager asked, crossing his arms. Mané took a deep breath. His heart was racing, not out of fear, but because of the anger growing inside him. He wasn't a man who sought out conflict. He avoided trouble whenever possible. But this was too much. "You fired this guy just because he gave me a meal?" His voice was firm, full of indignation. The manager let out a short, humorless laugh. "He broke the rules. Nobody works for free here. If we start giving food to every person who walks in without money, we'll turn into a homeless shelter." Mané narrowed his eyes. The way the manager spoke deeply unsettled him. He had heard plenty of wealthy and powerful people talk down to those less fortunate. But here, right in front of him, a young man had shown kindness and was being punished for it. Lucas, still holding his work apron in his hands, looked at Mané and subtly shook his head as if saying, "It's not worth it." But Mané ignored the warning. "What if I said I can pay for this meal?" he asked, staring at the manager. The man laughed again. "It's not just about paying, it's about rules. This kid thought he could make decisions without permission, and now he's learning a lesson." Mané clenched his fists. "The only lesson he learned here is that kindness isn't valued." His voice was low but full of fury. The manager scoffed. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but if you don't have money and you've already eaten, the door is right there." He pointed toward the exit with a sharp gesture. Mané took a deep breath. His instincts told him to walk away, but something inside him burned. He had seen too many injustices in his life, from his humble childhood in Senegal to the backstage politics of football. He had always known the world was cruel to those who had less. But right now, in front of him, an act of pure generosity was being punished, and he couldn't just stand by. "You have no idea who I am, do you?" Mané asked, his voice slightly lower. The manager rolled his eyes. "Oh, please. This isn't a casino where we give credit to broke gamblers." Several McDonald's employees widened their eyes. Some recognized Mané at that moment, but no one dared to say anything. The footballer, on the other hand, felt a rush of adrenaline course through his body. "You talk too much," Mané said, stepping forward. The manager frowned, but before he could react, a solid punch landed on his face. The impact was strong. The man stumbled backward, hitting the soda machine, knocking over a few cups and making a loud noise. The entire restaurant was in shock. A customer dropped a burger onto the floor. A child pointed, mouth open. "Oh my God!" a cashier exclaimed. The manager tried to regain his balance, touching his face and feeling the swelling already forming. His eyes were wide, shocked, and filled with rage. "You bastard!" he growled, lunging at Mané. But the footballer was quick. He dodged the manager's clumsy punch with ease. Mané was an elite athlete, used to evading brutal defenders in the Premier League. This This was nothing. With a fluid movement, Mané took a small step back, avoiding the attack, then twisted his body and landed a second punch straight to the manager's stomach. The man doubled over from the impact, gasping for air. He coughed, almost choking, and leaned against the counter for support. "Stop!" a female employee screamed. "Call the police!" someone shouted. Lucas, stunned, grabbed Mané's arm. "Dude, stop! You're gonna get in trouble!" Mané was breathing heavily. He wasn't one for fighting, never had been. But his blood was boiling. The manager tried to straighten up, his face twisted with rage. "You're done. I'm calling security right now!" Mané cracked his knuckles, ready for more, but then he stopped. What was he doing? He looked around. The shocked faces, the confusion, the tension in the air. He was a professional athlete, a role model for so many, and here he was, brawling in a McDonald's like a common thug. He took a deep breath and stepped back. "It's not worth it," he muttered to himself. He turned to Lucas. "Come with me." Lucas blinked, confused. "What?" "You don't deserve to be here," Mané said. The manager, still catching his breath, shouted, "Yeah, get out of here!" Mané ignored him. He grabbed Lucas by the arm and pulled him toward the exit. The rain was still falling lightly on the sidewalk, reflecting the city lights. Lucas looked at Mané, still trying to understand. "Man, are you crazy?" Mané ran a hand over his face, feeling the adrenaline starting to wear off. "Maybe." Then he looked directly at Lucas. "But I know one thing. You didn't lose your job. You just got a new one." Lucas frowned. "What do you mean?" Mané smiled. "You helped someone without expecting anything in return. People like you are rare." "I need someone like you." Lucas blinked, still processing. "Wait. Who are you, really?" Mané took a deep breath and removed his cap, and then it clicked. Lucas's eyes went wide. "No way." Mané grinned. "Yes way." The former cashier ran his hands through his hair in disbelief. "Oh my God, I just went head-to-head with a fast food manager alongside Sadio Mané." Mané laughed. "Welcome to the team, then." Lucas blinked again, trying to grasp what this all meant. But deep down, he already knew. His life was about to change forever. The rain continued to fall gently on the sidewalk, illuminated by the glow of streetlights and shop windows. Lucas was still stunned, trying to process what had just happened. He had been fired for an act of kindness, got into a fight inside a McDonald's, and now he was standing in front of Sadio Mané, one of the greatest football players in the world, who had just offered him an opportunity he didn't quite understand yet. Wait. Lucas shook his head as if trying to reorganize his thoughts. "Are you serious?" Mané smiled, adjusting his cap again. "I never say anything I don't mean." Lucas laughed, still nervous. "But a new job? What are you talking about?" Mané crossed his arms and looked at the young former cashier. "You were working in a place where they didn't value you, where you got fired for doing the right thing. That tells me a lot about who you are. And I need people like that around me." Lucas frowned. "But I don't even know what you do besides football." "I have some social projects in Senegal," Mané explained. "Schools, hospitals, initiatives to help those in need. People like you are essential in these places. You care about others without expecting anything in return. That's rare." Lucas blinked a few times, absorbing the words. "You want me to work for you?" Mané nodded. "I do. But first, I want you to understand my story and why I do what I do." Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. He had never imagined his night would end like this. "And what if I say I can't? That I have my life here?" Mané smiled. "Then I'll say I respect your decision. But it seems like your life here has just changed, hasn't it?" Lucas looked at the McDonald's door. He had been fired, humiliated in front of his colleagues and customers. His life was already changing, whether he wanted it to or not. After a few seconds of silence, he let out a long sigh. "All right, Tell me more about it. Mané smiled. Let's get out of here first. The two walked through the light rain as Mané began to tell his story. Hours later, they were sitting in a small cafe, wearing dry clothes and with a hot drink in front of them. Mané told Lucas about his childhood in Senegal, about growing up in a humble village with limited opportunities, about his journey in football, and his decision to invest in the community he came from. He explained about his schools, hospitals, and aid programs. When I was a kid, Mané said, looking at the cup of tea in front of him, there were days when we didn't have enough food. I know what it's like to feel hungry. I know what it's like to have no one to help you. Lucas listened carefully. I've been through tough times too, he admitted. I never went hungry, but I know what it's like to feel like no one cares. Mané looked at him and smiled. But you care, and that makes all the difference. Lucas took a deep breath. So, how exactly would I help with these projects? At first, I want you to come with me, see how everything works. Then, we'll find a role for you. Lucas remained silent for a moment, processing everything. He had never imagined working on something like this. His life plan was simple: study whenever he could, work to pay the bills, and try to improve his situation little by little. But now, he looked at Mané. I'm in. Mané extended his hand. Welcome to the team. Lucas shook his hand, feeling that for the first time in a long while, he was making a decision that could change his life forever. 2 weeks later, Lucas was on a plane headed for Senegal. He had never left the country before and could hardly believe what was happening. Upon arrival, Mané took him to visit one of his schools. Lucas saw children running, smiling, learning. He met teachers, doctors, and volunteers working on Mané's projects, and for the first time, he felt like he was part of something bigger. That night, sitting in a simple hotel room, he picked up his phone and sent a message to a former colleague from McDonald's. I think getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to me. And he knew it was true. Lucas was no longer just a fast food worker. Now he was part of something much greater. And it all started with a simple act of kindness.